Well, my practice is split roughly 50-50 down the middle between private practice in the Edinburgh area and also specific work I do with armed forces veterans, also living in Edinburgh in supported accommodation. So both of those are within private practice, but I'm kind of subcontracted in by the charity concerned to do work with about a dozen men mainly a week.
And you've been undertaking some research in terms of that, in terms of using TA with that client group, I understand.
Yes, that's right. Originally I did a pilot study back in 2013 with 6 of the veterans, looking at working with a mainly integrative and relational TA approach, a mixture of those two. And I was using what's called the GAD-7 anxiety scale questionnaire, PHQ-9 depression scale, and what's called the clinical core OM scale, which is a sort of NHS-based general measure of well-being, and taking questionnaire samples every 4 weeks or every 4 sessions with these chaps, who all consented obviously to be part of it. And this was originally partly for fundraising purposes for the charity, but also to give the chaps and myself a sense of whether the work we were doing was having a positive impact.
Okay, so it was
a measurement tool, really.
Partly for your own interest as well. It sounds like, to see how effective am I being, or how effective is TA in terms of this this client group. And what sort of models were you using? So you said you were using integrative and some relational models. What specific TA models were you thinking about?
I mean, there are a number of elements of the relational side and the integrative school, plus some neuroscience underpinning that I was using. So in terms of the main TA people I was referring to was Wendy Pomeroy, who wrote an article about the limbic system and post-traumatic stress disorder specifically as being a limbic system problem, where there's difficulty switching back from the limbic system back to neocortex control. And this roughly equates to switching back from a child ego state model back to an adult ego state function. So she kind of used the Bernian ego state model and combined that with some neuroscientific theory as well, and produced a model of trauma and also a treatment plan for working with people who've been through those experiences, which involves strengthening the adult ego state, stabilizing their day-to-day lives, they're rediscovering the resources that they once had before the trauma, but also some deconfusion work in terms of integrating the fragments that have been created by dissociation following the traumatic event. So Wendy Pomeroy was quite an important figure there, as was Struthridge as well. Judy Struthridge, Joe Struthridge, that's right, yeah. And she wrote 2 articles in 2006 and 2012, which continued that neat dovetailing of TA theory and neuroscience. Talked about trauma being stored in the subsymbolic mode, i.e. below adult, A2 adult ego state, in this sort of subsymbolic level of A0, A1, B1, P0, that sort of level. So those were the main TA theories. Obviously with the integrative stuff, there's a lot around satisfying relational needs, which is an Erskine Troutman model, I think. But also because of the level of disorder that some of these chaps were displaying, they had underlying personality problems as well. So a purely integrative TA approach, which is satisfying relational needs, wouldn't necessarily work, and particularly with the chaps who had more of an antisocial type presentation, they would have used that against me in the transference. So I needed to be more relational, more working in the transference than would be in the original model.
All right, and what are the outcomes?
Well, going back to the pilot study, the results from the 3 measures I used showed encouraging suggestions that after there was 16 sessions, anxiety, depression and overall well-being all improved significantly beyond what could be accounted for by non-therapeutic factors. So this is a measure called reliable change in statistics. So building on that, the charity decided to extend the psychotherapy program indefinitely, which is pretty unusual, being able to be paid to do indefinite amounts of long-term psychotherapy with people. So the main piece, which I've just finished just now, I'm just about to, has taken around 2 years, starting from January 2012, and there's 15 veterans involved, and they've been divided into 2 groups. One group who've received around 24 sessions, and then a 52 session group. So
a longer term group.
Yes, and the same measures were used, but there was also what's called change interviews conducted, where it's like a semi-structured interview where we talk to the chaps, and they give their own perspective on how their lives have improved, and specific interventions, including some TA theoretical interventions that have improved their self-understanding and their ability to regulate their own experience. And the results have been really positive. Some have achieved what's called clinically significant change, i.e. they no longer merit a diagnosis of having PTSD.
Wow.
And the vast majority have achieved what's called reliable change, which is that positive improvement which could not be accounted for by any other factor apart from the therapy. So.
Yeah, that's
so
fantastic.
It's really encouraging. Yeah.
Good for you, great. And when will this be published? When will we be able to?
Yes, well at the moment
results?
It goes through the peer review process, and then will be published in the International Journal of TA Research in July this year.
Great. So
the next couple of months it will be edited, trimmed and formatted, and thereafter it should be available online, which is of course free for anyone to sign up to. That's one of the advantages of it. You don't need to pay a fee as such, so you just need to log in and you have all that research at your fingertips. So.
That's fantastic. That's great. Sounds like really fantastic work.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and really opened my eyes to using TA in a very specific context with a group of people in terms of the treatment they've received in the past. So.